Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this special quorum court to order. The purpose of this meeting is to continue working on items pertaining to the 2016 budget process. The prayer and the pledge is going to be handled by J.P. Bill Ussery. J.P. Ussery.
Lord, we are so grateful for all of your blessings. And thank you for the opportunity before us tonight. Give us great wisdom, Lord, and give us understanding. And we thank you for that. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, J.P. Ussery. Carla, would you call the roll, please?
Daniel Balls.
Here.
Harvey Bowman.
Here.
Rick Cochran.
Here.
Robert Dennis.
Here.
Lisa Ecke. Ann Harbison. Sharon Lloyd. Tom Lundstrom.
Here.
Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joe Maxwell. Gary McHenry. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond.
Here.
Bill Ussery.
Quorum present. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The next thing on the agenda, decision on the Washington County compensation for employees and elected officials for 2016. Rick, are you going to handle that, or did you want me to go ahead or look at number 5?
Right. Judge, it's your call.
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, thank you. In your packet, we have several variations of compensation levels. And I think I don't know if has everybody studied them enough to begin conversation? I'll take that as a no. So basically, 5.1 shows a 2 to 3% raise and 85% maximum for elected county officers. The left upper quarter shows a 2% and how much that is by major fund. Total of $583,131.36. And Cheryl, that does include our benefits. Thank you. To the right at the top is a 3% figure, same grouping, and it shows $832,343.96 for a 3%. And this is for full-time employees only, and we're setting with these two the 85% limit for the elected full-time county officers. The county officers in the left corner shows their minimum and maximum by state law, and 85% of the maximum, and shows you the amounts that they would be. And I'll just open this for discussion as you all want to. Do you want to direct discussion, Judge?
Yes, I'll go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick, for doing that. Yes, J.P. Madison.
Thank you. I think the sheriff had floated at some point, maybe earlier this year, the concept of doing some kind of almost like a phase-in for elected officials, where sort of if you're in your first term, you're at X percent, and sort of once you build up to sort of reward longevity in elected officials. I know that state law says that you can't ever lower someone's salary, I think. So I think we need to consider some kind of scheme like that. I think that made a lot of sense. So that if you're in your first year as an elected official, your first term, you're at a certain percentage of the state's line item max, and then for each additional term you sort of accrue, and so you build up, so that way you're not paying the newly elected, and I guess by that parameter, inexperienced person, the same as the most experienced elected official who's been serving for a long time. And I would like to do something like that, and I think it's going to take a little more work. I know the sheriff had sent around a proposal. I don't know if it was based on the way other counties do it, but I think that's really good because that rewards our elected officials who have the longest tenures and allows them to really build up into a nice salary and reward them for their length of service. So I would like to see us do something like that instead of just this flat increase for everyone. Thank you.
J.P. Lundstrom?
I agree with J.P. Madison, but in discussing some of this with our county attorney a while ago, I think that would need to be done in next year's budget for the 2017 people. But I would still like to entertain tonight raising the sheriff's salary and the judge's salary, which was accepted as a friendly amendment last meeting, to 90%. But I do not want to see the new incoming judge and some of the newer officials coming in like Justice Madison at those higher rates, because they're inexperienced and quite frankly are probably not worthy of those kind of paychecks. So don't know if I need to make a motion to that effect right now or wait until we discuss this for a while. And also on the employees' pay, I personally would prefer to see a bonus rather than a pay increase, an annual pay increase, because I think the bonuses tend to help the lower paid people more than just a 2% pay increase would. 2% on a $10 or $12 paycheck, 2% on a $12 paycheck is 24 cents. On a $60,000 or $80,000 paycheck, it's considerably more. So I would personally, like this year with our restricted budget, look at a bonus. I don't know, Cheryl would have to tell us what it would cost, but I'd like to see something in the $600 or $700 range, which probably would come in around what the raise would. But we wouldn't be burdened with it next year. You know, next year, if the economy's still strong, has regained in its strength, then we could look at a nicer increase for them next year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Zaga?
With respect to Justice Lundstrom's, the vehicle for, as I understand it, they tabled, the court tabled his main motion, meaning it's still alive, but the vehicle for that, Justice Lundstrom, is a motion to bring it off the table or take it from the table, which would need a second and a majority vote from the court. And now, you don't have to necessarily deal with these things together either. I'm just telling you that as the parliamentary vehicle to do that.
I'm going to recognize J.P. Lundstrom again. Go ahead.
Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and make that motion now with regards to those two pay grades for the judge and the sheriff. Take them from 85% to 90%.
Have a motion and a second. Okay.
Judge, that's
No, just a minute.
that's a precedential motion, just like a motion to table. You need to vote on that now before further discussion.
So, help me now. What do we say?
You need to vote on Justice Lundstrom's motion without further discussion as to whether you're going to bring it back off the table.
Okay. Does everyone understand what we're doing? Carly, call the roll, please.
Butch Pond,
Yes.
Bill Ussery,
No.
Daniel Balls,
Yes.
Harvey Bowman,
No.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis,
Yes.
Lisa Ake, Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd,
No.
Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison,
No.
Sue Madison,
No.
Joe Maxwell,
Abstain.
Gary McHenry,
Abstain.
Joe Patterson,
Yes.
What was the vote?
I'm counting, Judge.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It fails basically in a tie. 7 in the affirmative. No, I'm sorry, it's not a tie. 7 in the affirmative, 6 in the negative, 2 abstentions. The motion to bring it off the table fails.
Okay, so now, J.P. Cochran.
There we go. Thank you, Judge. Regarding a scaling of the salaries for the elected officials based on their years of service here at the county has merit in my mind, but it also has a fallacy. We could bring somebody in, say, Sheriff Helder decides to retire, and a local, or, well, it'd have to be a local sheriff, a local police department, maybe a captain major or the top position with 15 years, 20 years experience could come into that position, win that, and then we'd put them in at a lower rate. And I can't foresee the future as to who's coming into office, and some will be more qualified than others. That'll always be the case. But to put them in a tiered basis based on their number of years here at the county, I couldn't support it on that reason. Thank you, Judge.
Ann?
Well, my question had to do with Judge Lundstrom's, Judge Lundstrom, hello, J.P. Lundstrom. His question, because I want to know how much additional money it was going to be at 90%. Do you have that figured, Cheryl? No? Okay.
So we don't have anything on the table, so, and Ann, you're asking a figure?
Or I asked for a figure on that,
I
but
think
since
that's out
it failed, it would probably.
Okay, we'll let that go for right now.
We'll just let that go. But I'm going to go on and make a motion that we do the 3% and the 85% of the maximum for elected officials. 3%, and I'm just going to make that motion, 3%. I know there's some that are against that, but I'm going to make the motion, and we'll see if we have an amendment that we can live with. 3% and 85 maximum for elected officials.
Do I have a second? Second. Who seconded that? Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Discussion? JP03.
I think that the 3% would be the way to go on this, and the only reason is because last year we lagged behind. This year we're lagging behind. If we do 2% or we even do just a bonus, the next year we're going to be 5 to 8% behind everybody else in the area. And so I think for us to even have a chance of this way, we're not as far behind as we would be. And so I certainly can support the 3%. I think the workers are worth it. Thank you.
Cheryl? Come to this mic, please, or turn your mic on.
5.4 shows what the amounts would be, and what that would, on 5.4, what that shows is a 3% raise for full-time employees with the 85% of maximum for the elected officials. 2% of that would be covered by the county clerk's automation fund, and it would cover the 85% for the elected officials. The extra 1% would be covered by the respective funds. And so that would show you what the balances would actually be. If you wanted to vote on the budget tonight, that's what you would be voting on.
JP Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. Ms. Bollinger, would you go over that again and tell us where on this page it refers to the 1% that you're talking about, or the?
If you will compare 5.3 or 5. Any of the other ones that's got that on there, you will see that 5.4 has a smaller designated reserves by a small amount. On 5.3, it shows unappropriated reserves for county general, 5.5 million, almost 5.6. If you look at 5.4, it shows it would be 5.3%. That's where the extra 1% is coming for county general employees. In that last column where you see those asterisks, that is showing those funds are picking up the additional 1% above what the county clerk is covering for the 2% and the 85% for the elected officials.
So the county clerk's money is covering everything except the difference between 11,524,000 and 11,774,000. Is that what you're saying?
They're covering any raises and benefits except for the 1%.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what the cost to the county is after we take out the county clerk's donation. Is it the 11,774,000 minus 11,524,000?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you.
I was just going to add to that. 5.1 shows the total $583,131.36 for a 2%, and $832,343.96. That's on the total column, the left and right. So it's $249,000 that we would be taking out of the county budget, and the county clerk's automation fund will cover the first 583. So 249 is what we're looking at reducing our unappropriated reserve. Thank you, Judge.
Yes, J.P. Madison.
My concern remains using one-time money for an ongoing expense. I tend to agree with J.P. Lundstrom that if we're going to use one-time money, it's absolutely the best way to use it is in form of a bonus. I also really have a difficult time doing a percentage-based raise that benefits those at the top the most. A 2% is less significant just because it's a lesser percentage, but the 3% especially, I'm having trouble doing that. So I would be in favor of accepting our county clerk's generous offer and giving that in a bonus. But I think until we have some way of knowing how we're going to make that revenue appear 2 years from now, that we're being short-sighted by committing to a raise permanent. So thank you.
J.P. Bowman.
One thing, thank you, Judge. One thing I'd like for everybody to remember. Mr. Johansson told us in this recent review of salaries and income versus other businesses and so forth, that the county benefits are not included in these comparisons. We're talking about compensation. And guys, I've fussed about this from the very time I came on the court. 15% going into a retirement fund compared to all these other funds out here. We've got a number of business owners in this room, and I've got other friends, and we talk about these kind of things. And I'm telling you, that's a very lucrative program. And if we're going to compare these numbers, we need to be total numbers, not just compensation. So please remember that those doggone things are not included in the numbers that Blair has shown us. So, guys, I'm telling you, I like the bonus idea. As far as us being behind, I don't think we're behind. I think we include total packages, we're right where we need to be. And I would like to see the employees get a bonus this year. I think it's something that would probably help equalize some of the lower compensated jobs. But we've done a really good job of trying to bring the budget under control. If we go ahead and do another raise right now, there'll be another one expected next year. But if we'll go ahead and give them a bonus this year, and remember that these benefits do count too, then I think we're going the right direction. So I'm going to be supporting the idea of a bonus, and I'm going to oppose both the 2% and the 3% raises. Thank you.
J.P. Harbison.
On the benefits, this is something that's 40 years down the road that these people will receive. And yes, we have people that stay with the county even though the salary is not that competitive because of the benefits that they get in 20 or 30 years later. But, you know, these benefits are set by the state legislature. They're not set by us. So that's something that, you know, I think we need to give the equivalent of a 3% raise, whether it's in a bonus or the salary. At this point, I just think our employees deserve something. And but this benefit package, yes, it is, but it also keeps people employed at the county that otherwise would not stay. I mean, I've talked to these people, and they have told me this. So I don't see how it does need to be included, yes, but it's something that holds our employees. But it's not competitive in the market and keeping people. If they didn't have the benefit, our salaries, people would be gone. You know, the minute they get a chance to increase, to better themselves, they would be gone. And, you know, so I just hate that argument that because something's that's been set by the state that we're responsible for it, and we're not. Thank you.
J.P. Maxwell.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Lindsay, would you care to provide some expertise for us on a couple of things, if you don't mind? I think that we need to reward county employees that work hard and want to see us figure out a way to do that. I know that we've talked a little bit about merit-based increases, and I think that from my mentality, what you measure and reward is what you get. And it also handles some of that disparity between some of the lower pay grades and the higher pay grades. Can you just speak a little bit to how feasible that would be and how difficult something like that would be to implement? And if you have kind of an idea of what a good merit-based plan would look like to share with us?
Well, merit's doable. I mean, the county has taken measures in the last 4 years to try to kind of create a system of equalized performance evaluation. Every department does a performance evaluation. They all do the same evaluation, and it's point-based. And so we have created a system to kind of equalize and come up with a numeric figure so that merit can be computed. The only thing that I really want to stress is when it comes to merit, merit is as effective as the likelihood of it being there the next year. So when you're trying to encourage employees to perform well because it affects their pay, there has to be this expectation or anticipation. There's a likelihood that it's going to recur. If it doesn't recur, it just takes one or two occurrences. They no longer are incentivized by that. And so that's the one thing I want to point out. It does have to be done very fairly. It would have to be tied to their evaluation, meaning that departments would not have the liberty of saying, okay, well, I want to opt out and give all my employees the same rate. They would need to correlate it to the numeric score that we have on file in the HR department to make it successful. Good news is the deadline was today for performance evaluations, and we have about 95% of them already collected, with a couple offices asking us for a one-day extension. So we do have those figures. It's just making sure that the department heads understand that it will have to be correlated very closely, and there won't be that liberty to step outside of it. It has to be tied to performance.
And do you have some experience or some observations, I guess, that plans that are merit-based like that, do they really truly cultivate better performance and actually reward the better performers in practice as much as in theory?
Basically, I'll answer that by saying if there's an expectation of it being there next year. Okay. Yes, it can be a motivator, but if the employees are expecting it, they perform top of their game the next year, there is no merit. The likelihood of them performing at the same level the next year as using that solely as their motivator, it doesn't have the same impact. And so what best plan would be if the county's going to look down to merit, this is something I've seen Benton County do and some of the other local counties, they created a merit system. And they wrote into their program, kind of into their budget controls per se, an expectation of what they would expect merit to be on an annual basis. And of course, the Quorum Court still holds the authority to adapt that, to eliminate it, all of those things. But really, if you have a system in place, that's where merit functions most effectively.
And can I ask one more thing? What's the biggest pitfall if we were to think about implementing something like this, besides needing to be consistent and taking away the latitude? Is there anything else that you can see that we need to be aware of that sounds like it works, it's doable, we're already set up really for it to do, it's not difficult for us to make that transition? Are there any other things that we would need to consider?
I think really the biggest thing is just making sure that department heads and elected officials are very fair on their evaluations. They're very honest and very accurate, that we don't see a discriminatory effect. There would have to be some checks and balances in place, maybe when a merit was presented, to make sure that we didn't see some sort of effect on a minority or a certain gender, and we would need to put those in place before the merit was actually given for the year. And so, but it is legally doable.
Okay.
I want to call it a point of order because this is merit pay and there's motion on the floor for a 3% raise with an 85% for elected officials.
I think this is in order because the increase could be based on merit rather than just an across the board. I think we're still in discussion about how to implement that increase that you're suggesting.
Hang on just a minute. Keep order. Okay, so now we have a point of order. I'm going to have to rule on that. Is that correct?
That's correct, Judge.
I'm going to yield to the point of order. So now we have a motion on the floor?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
We did.
Yes.
Huh?
We did have a second.
Who had the second?
Justice
Okay.
Falls.
Okay, any other discussion on this? Ann, would you like to clarify what your motion is
Okay,
now?
the motion is that we give a 3% raise with, that includes an 85% of the max for elected officials, the maximum allowed for elected officials.
Does everybody understand? Butch?
I know from past meetings, we have some differences of opinion on the court on whether it should be across the board percentage-wise or take the same amount of money and do across the board.
Hang on just a
Okay,
minute, Butch. We are completely off base here. Let's go ahead and see what we've got here. We've got a motion on the floor. We got a second. Is there any discussion on that particular motion?
All right.
Okay, but that was a different thing. Okay, then we're going to hold up on your motion. So,
Why?
well, because the other people want discussion.
Oh, okay.
They
As
got
long as it's discussing the motion.
Okay, J.P. Madison.
I didn't realize I was next, but thank you, Madam Judge.
Oh, there's a bunch after you.
Okay. Well, let me just say that about the across-the-board 3% raise, that I cannot support that. And one of the reasons is I'd like to remind my fellow JPs that we had asked Mr. Johansson to include the value of take-home vehicles in compensation. And because the comptroller could not put a dollar figure on that, he didn't do it. So we still have, in my mind, this gross disparity among employees in same grades with same jobs because of that issue. So I cannot support across the board when we still have that anomaly in our compensation. Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Madam Judge. Ms. Huff, if I may ask, Ms. Huffaker, does a county employee ever have to face downsizing, mergers, furloughs, market downturns, and losing their jobs?
Losing their jobs, potentially. Since I've been at the county, I had an HR employee laid off. There have been times that the city has seen days closed because they didn't have the funding. And so mergers, no.
Furloughs?
But there are the possibility that if there's not enough budgetary funding that they can see, or the budget's not passed, they could see days off without pay. That's really the catch.
How often does that happen?
Rarely.
I know Mr. Johansson prepares a very good in-depth report, but I feel sometimes the lens in which he evaluates the market isn't the lens that I see reality through, because I'm out there in the job market and I'm an employer, and I see the threat of people losing their jobs all the time. Ask Walmart. 450 of them just said bye-bye. That's it. Talking about stocks and benefits, I'm going, whoa, I wish that was available. Talking about cell phones, they're not available. A lot of the things that he says that make county employees below market pay, I can't find it. It's nebulous to me. And when I ask other comptrollers, how much do we pay our employees, and I show them what the county is, they go, can my son have a job? I mean, he's in college. Boy, this is great. And to kind of dismiss and discount the benefit, retirement benefit, long-term benefit, I don't think is accurate. So I think his lens is different from my lens. And I cannot support what he's saying because my experience and my reference is my job experience, and I know what I went through. So I'm not going to support the 3% across the board because he did not finish the 20%, I guess, added to other employees for the vehicles. And I did have a constituent call, and he said, I'm going to call every one of the JPs and tell them, do not support this raise for people who have vehicles. I'm on Social Security, and I am flat this year. We did not get a raise, so why should others get a raise? Did y'all get his phone call?
I got it.
No.
I did.
I did. And he said, please consider that. Bonuses, we understand, but pay increases, he said, I don't understand what's going on. So information that we received, it's good, but I don't agree. I think employees are very well paid.
Judge, can I
thank you.
respond to that?
Yes, go ahead,
Okay.
Lindsay.
I just want to, because it's directly related to that. At the last meeting, Blair Johansson, he didn't dismiss the retirement whatsoever. In fact, the report that he passed out to the Quorum Court showed it as a percentage compared to payroll. And he also presented the NOARC study, the ACA study, the federal government, and it listed out their retirement benefits plus health and benefits. And all it looked at was the percentage that the company paid or the dollar amount the company paid. And so when he did his last presentation, he actually, on a Monday night and Tuesday night, accounted for the retirement fully. I want to say that when he presented that as a total payroll, we look at the fact that we're, I'm throwing a number, roughly 3% behind what he said was the NOARC market. We are roughly 2% behind the NOARC market in benefits. That's including our retirement. We are roughly 5% before the ACA market. That's including retirement. We don't even want to talk about federal employees. Because we're 6% behind the market when you start looking. That's not salaries. That's just benefit packages. Completely separate from salaries. That's where we're behind in benefit packages. I will say this, that the data that is gathered is based off of employers that take the time to respond to studies. Not every employer does. But if they take the time to respond to the study, that is accounted, and that is what organizations all across this region use. And so right now, 25% of our payroll, that same amount is equivalent for benefits. ACA, it's 27. 30. NOARC is 27. Federal government is 31. We aren't running far, far ahead in the distance when it comes to benefit packages as a percentage of our payroll. I can't tell you what that plan looks like. I can't tell you if they have a $300 deductible or an $8,000 deductible. I can only tell you the percentage of benefits that's being paid. But what they're paying is roughly 2%, 5%, and 6% of those that respond to studies ahead of Washington County. And he did account for retirement.
Thank you. I didn't get that. The only report that I received is the one where he did not have benefits included in it.
It kind of looks like this. He just updated it today, but this is what it looks like. And he passed it out the last meeting in the packets.
Okay, thank you. But I'll support a bonus, but not the 3%. Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Bowman.
Well, since we've had a point of order here, my only comment, Judge, would be that it doesn't make any difference if these decisions are made in Little Rock about compensation or they're made here. It does come out of our checkbook here. When we pay these retirement benefits and everything else, it comes off of our bottom line, whether it affects Little Rock or not. So we're still talking about the same impact on our budget, whether somebody else made the decision or we did. Thank you.
J.P. Harbison.
Well, I don't think I can amend my motion, so I pass.
J.P. Cochran.
Thank you. I too think that this year bonus is wiser than a percentage increase. And Cheryl, you may have the numbers, or Lindsay, you may be able to help me on this. No. Per employee, how many employees do we have that are not in management, not our elected officials?
I don't have that number with me. I do have,
You have total?
no.
Okay.
But I have, it may be in the Blue Book somewhere. I did a report showing a 2%, a bonus versus a 2% raise, which was approximately, would be the cost to the county. And that would come out to about $423 for an employee for full-time and $212 for part-time.
Okay. Okay.
And that's based on the number of employees that we have.
Okay, that's where I was wanting to kind
And
of see.
and what that shows is the cost for that type of a bonus to the employees would be $563,000. A raise, that much of a raise to an employee would cost the county $319,000. So we'd have an additional cost of $243,000 because we pay the taxes and all for the employees on those.
This is true, but we don't have the recurring cost unless we choose to bring it forward at some point in the future. So I would move to amend Justice Harbison's seconded motion to say that the 3% would be paid as a bonus on a person basis rather than a percentage basis.
Did you, hang on just a minute. Okay, so you accept that as a friendly, do you accept that as a friendly, okay, so we're in place,
May I
yes,
inquire of
please,
Justice
yes.
Cochran?
Yes.
Justice Cochran, are you leaving alone Justice Harbison's main motion with respect to compensation for elected officials, which is 85%?
That is omitted. Yes, I was not anticipating that we go ahead and move that high on the elected officials. However,
Well, that's what it's at
Yeah.
now, I think.
Yeah,
That's what it is now.
that's what it is. Okay, all right. Then yes, we'll leave that.
The reason I asked that is that it seemed to me that your motion was aimed solely at
At
a
our-
portion of her
Yes, sir.
motion dealing with the raise or not.
Yes, yes, and how it's distributed. Thank you, Judge.
A 3% raise for elected officials anyway at 85%.
No, the way I understood the main motion, and the way I understood the main motion was that there was a 3% raise that's now been accepted as a friendly to be paid in a bonus, and that elected officials were going to be 85% of their statutory maximum, which has already been taken care of by the legislature. That their elevator has been, that button's been pushed by the legislature already.
So they will get a 3%.
They'll get a raise, but it's one that you're paying for, but it's more like what Justice Bowman just said. You're paying for, but it's being decided, it was decided for you in Little Rock, if you stick with the 85% that Justice Harbison just moved, and that's what you do.
So,
Essentially, the way I took Justice Cochran's motion is instead of a raise, we're now talking about a bonus.
Yes, sir. And also bonus based on per person rather than percent of your base salary. So it would well, you're going to divide it up.
you're going to have
We
salary to
had
go
like
on.
400, you said $425, pretty close. Was it $423 per employee?
Full-time.
Okay, right. So we can use that number as $423 for full-time, $212 for part-time.
If you did $500 and $250, it would be $665,423.40.
Which is just a little over what we would pay if we were doing a 2%. So essentially, if we're still receiving the amount from the county clerk's cost fund, it would only be about $70,000 out of our reserves. This would also keep us from skewing our slopes that Blair showed us, because everybody gets this one-time amount. They stay at the same level, and we don't get that messed up because it's taken us a few years to get it kind of straightened out. Thank you, Judge.
So does everyone understand what we're discussing now? JPS3?
I guess, I mean, I understand exactly what we're trying to do here, but I'd just like to point out that the people on the lower end of the scale currently are 12% below the market. At this rate, the people on the upper end of the scale right now are 10 to 15% below market. So what we're doing is we're skewing it the other way, and if you look at the scattergram that we've paid somebody to make for us, and I know y'all can't see it from there, but the people on this end are all falling further and further behind. we're helping the people down here, which is what we want to do. But the people on this end right here, they're going lower and lower and lower. And I just, if we continue this, they're just going to continue to get further behind. I'd just like to point that out. Thank you.
Okay, J.P. Madison. Yes.
Thank you, Judge. I would like to understand where the money for the cost of living increase for elected officials comes from. Does that come out of reserves, or does that come from someplace else? And how much is that total?
Any raise, any benefits that's coming out of the budgets would come out of the budgets.
Out of the general fund.
It would depend on where you're, what you vote on. Becky offered to do a 2% or a 3%. She offered to do a 2% for the employees and 85% for the elected officials.
So Becky's money can cover the elected officials as well?
Yes.
What is the total for elected officials for their just their cost of living?
It's right there.
The 36,000?
Yes, it's in there somewhere. I believe that's what it was.
5.1.
Okay, thank you.
J.P. Madison, did you have your hand up?
Thank you, Judge. I would really like to ask the J.P. Harbison, who's made the motion, to sever these two. I think there's two distinct issues that we're talking about. I'm concerned about, we're telling employees that we can't afford a raise, and so we're giving them a bonus, and yet we're effectively giving elected officials a raise because the legislature they automatically increase the line item max a percentage every year. So by staying at the steady 85%, we're giving elected officials a raise that we're telling employees that we can't afford. And I think that sends absolutely the wrong message. I wish we could give everyone a raise, but I just think times aren't that way. And I'd like to see these, I don't know if there's such a thing as a motion to sever, and if I could make it, but I'd like to see these two issues split so that one doesn't defeat the other. Is there such a motion?
Can you tell me this, Mr. Zaga? Hang on just a minute. Let me see what he's come up with legally.
I'm worried if we defeat it, then we may not be able to bring it back up.
Actually, Justice Madison, it's not sever, it's called division of a question.
Okay.
And yes, it can be done. It requires a second, and it's not debatable.
So moved.
I didn't hear her do it.
So moved. Okay.
Go ahead and repeat yourself, if you will, J.P. Madison.
I've made a motion to divide the question, J.P. Harbison's motion, so that we have, with J.P. Cochran's friendly amendment, we have the employees, non-elected officials raise bonus issue, and then we have the 85% for elected officials as a separate voting item. So we'd be voting twice on what was once one motion.
And I have a second, but J.P. Pond, is this correct?
Judge,
Okay.
this one is not debatable, and it needs a majority to pass.
Carly, call the roll.
Butch Pond. Yes. Bill Essery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Eki. Yes. Ann Harbison.
No.
Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Gary McHenry.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Okay. So
Now,
the motion has been severed. Is that
the question's been divided,
Okay.
and the question before the court now is which one are you taking up first? And as I basically understand what you've been doing, you've been discussing the bonus. Seems to me that would be the logical one to deal with on the front end.
J.P. Cochran.
I agree with Attorney Zagas because I think that whatever we decide to do with the employees will be the impact of what we decide to do for the elected officials. So I move to discuss the 3% raise
Bonus.
For the employees first.
Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Judge, you can do that by voice vote.
Okay, now this, I understand, is a 3% bonus for the employees that are not elected.
No, you're not voting. You're not voting on the merits of the question yet, Judge. You're just voting on whether you're taking that up.
Okay, then I'm just going to do it by, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, then we'll move forward with that. So we are ready for a motion for this to be approved. Is that correct, Zaga?
Yeah, because the question's divided now, because the question was divided, it will take a motion to advance it now.
Cochran?
Thank you, Judge. I move to enact a 3% bonus at a rate of, what did we have? What did we have where you were at the 250 and 500? Was it?
250, yes.
Yes, for $500 for full-time employees, $250 for part-time employees.
Okay.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, J.P. Madison.
Is there any eligibility, like they have to be employed January 1? I missed that part of it. I know we've discussed that some years in the past, like, I don't, or Ms.
Lindsay,
Huffaker can probably
come
address
forward,
that.
Lindsay, and explain that for us, please.
What I would recommend is for full-time that, yes, you have a one-year anniversary period, that they at least have to meet that one-year anniversary. If you put that into the policy, basically what we do is if they're not eligible in December, on their one-year anniversary next year, they will receive this bonus. Well, let me defer to the comptroller. I'm thinking of raises. What do you want to do with bonuses?
That's a great question. My question is, when are you wanting to pay these bonuses? I would recommend, I mean, in the past, when we did these bonuses, we did them in July, and that works well for everyone. They have vacation money, I guess, and it's doable for us. And it was everybody that was employed as of January 1 and was still employed in July got the bonus.
J.P. Cochran?
Question to Attorney Zaga. May I amend the motion to include that verbiage for the time of payment?
It's your motion, so yes.
Okay. Then I would like to amend the motion to pay the bonuses at 2 times during the year for employees that have been there 6 months or longer at the time of the bonus. End of June, 1st of July, first pay period into July, and the first pay period in December. That way they have some summer money, they have some Christmas money.
250 each time.
500 for full-time would be 250 each time, each period, and 125 each period for the part-time employees.
Lindsay?
I want to make one more language recommendation. I wasn't quite done. Part-time, I would strongly recommend that you include verbiage that says APERS eligible. And the reason is because the employees that are APERS eligible work an average of 20 hours a week. If you do not include that, you're going to open the door to 800 part-time poll workers.
Poll workers and things
Yes.
like that. Okay. Good catch. Thank you. And
That's why we keep her.
and the part-time employees must be APERS eligible.
You have a
more
motion
help?
and a second. Okay,
Thank
any
you.
more discussion? J.P. Harbison?
I think it needs to be given all at one time because it gives a little pool of money for the employees to do something with. If we cut it into 2 payments, it decreases their buying power, I guess is what I want to say. So anyway, I just feel that it needs to be given a one-time bonus and not to split it. Thank you.
J.P. Cochran?
I will accept that as a friendly amendment.
And who seconded that?
Well, no, it's a friendly, doesn't need a second.
No, okay,
Right.
so.
I would also like to address Justice Harbison for a moment, if I could. Would you prefer it be at the midsummer or the Christmas time?
I'm sorry.
Well, we're going to have to wait a full year.
Right? Okay.
July.
Okay. So
July.
kind of revising again, if we're doing July, then probably should we not include a full year's employee at the time of payment? I'll ask you your recommendation. You think
Can
that's fair?
certainly do that, yeah.
Okay, so amending the motion to pay one time in the year the full amount of the 500 or 250, and pay that first pay period in July.
Okay, hang on. Can J.P. Maxwell go ahead, please?
Just one point as we're considering this, since I was the second on this. If we split it into 2 6-month eligibility periods, we actually can keep from limiting some of the employees who, if you didn't start till February, you wouldn't qualify for the first one, but you would be qualified for the second one. So if we make this a one-time payout, we're effectively limiting, maybe we want to do that, maybe we don't, but we're effectively limiting how many people can participate and to what magnitude. So if someone works the first 6 months of the year, they'd be entitled to that. If they quit in November, they still got half of their effective bonus. If someone doesn't start till the middle of the year, they're still qualified for that end-of-year bonus. So I think as long as we're considering this, we need to make sure before we make that amendment to the amendment or to the motion that we know that we're putting a limit on how many people can participate. Thank you.
J.P. Harbison?
Well, I like the verbiage, once they reach their anniversary date. I mean, so I'm not sure we've kind of, if we do it half of the year, if they've been there 6 months, they get half of it, and then, you know, so I don't know that, I mean, I guess that's fair. But I think it has some problems doing it that way.
J.P. Madison?
If we split it, I think the tax cost to the county may be lower because of the tax rate for bonuses is considered supplemental compensation, and it's not taxed as wages. It's taxed at a higher rate. So if you make the bonus lower, I don't know. I mean, that's my limited experience with supplemental compensation, but I think that if we're talking about how much it costs, and that's my second question is, we talked about 423 and now we're at 500, so I need to know the bottom line cost for what we're talking about.
For 500 and 250 is $665,423.40 approximately. But if we do bonuses, we also need to do them in an off payroll week.
Cheryl, would you please repeat that total one more time for the JPs?
$665,423.40.
Thank you.
Do you have as an approximate guess on that, on the 423 number, what that cost would be?
Yes, it is approximately $563,011.93.
I'm trying to remember where I thought we were trying to use the 3% figure and give that out. So I'm not sure where the math is going right now. Is it because of the 665, Ms. Bollinger, includes the cost of the taxes that we will be paying to make the bonus, the check be $500, whether it's split or not. So why did I think we were trying to go for the 3% number? Because I thought that was the motion, was that we took the 3% number and divided it by the number of employees and used that as a per person figure, which that's not the number we came up with. So I'm just really confused what our logic is. If we just picked a number that's $500 and that's what it is, but I thought we were going by the 796,000 number divided by the number of people. I don't know. I'm just a little confused as to where we're getting our numbers, but thank you, Judge.
J.P. Harbison.
Okay, when we're using the 3% number, it was $423. When we were using the 3% number, and it was $212. And Cheryl then said, well, if we made it $500 and $250, that's where the difference came in. So if you want to keep with the 3%, then it's $423 or $212. So she just kind of, rounded it up so that it would give them a little bit more money. So, so it went over the 3%.
Go ahead, J.P.
The
Madison.
3% number I'm seeing costs more than the cost of the $500 bonus that Ms. Bollinger just gave us. So,
Well, it's five.
so a $500 bonus would be, if you used a 3% number, it'd be more than a $500 bonus. That's what I'm not understanding. What number are we using? Because I thought we were trying to use the cost of the 3% bonus or the 3% raise to spread out as a bonus among all employees per person. So I don't know where the 423 number came from, but
Cheryl, is it convenient for you to tell us the exact amount of money that a 3% bonus for the employees only, and what money you're taking that against, the way you divide it out? Can you give us that exactly by the penny?
No, but the $423 and with the $212 for part-time was the 2%. If you remember,
2%,
when I gave those
okay.
numbers, that was comparable to the 2% raise. If you were doing a bonus, I just went ahead and rounded up. If you decided to do a 500 and 250, because all we had heard about was a 2% raise, I went ahead and did some numbers with the 3%. I did not do a bonus with the 3% raise, but I cannot do it right now.
okay, well, that helps.
J.P. Maxwell.
Can you just give us some clarification? Is that 500 and 250, is that what the employees would receive? Or is that the, okay, so then we're going to gross that up with taxes past that. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
So now we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. You made the, did you make the second, J.P. Maxwell?
I seconded the original.
Okay.
But I don't think I want to accept
Okay.
a friendly amendment to making it a one-time payout. I think we're better off to do that in two payouts, so more people are eligible and lower taxes.
Annette?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I lost an amendment somewhere, and I apologize for that. What I've got us on now was on the floor is employed for 1 year on New Year's Day 2016, full-time employees will get a $500 bonus. Part-time APRS eligible employees will get a $250 bonus. And it'll happen in July of 2016, but it did not get an assent from the second.
What I seconded was his original motion was to pay the 500 in two different
In
increments.
two installments.
Et cetera. I think Justice Harbison offered up a friendly amendment to make that just a one-time payout, and I will decline that friendly amendment.
So we're with the two installments still, as it stands.
Okay. Are we ready to vote? Carly, call the roll, please.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Essery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Ann Harbison. Sharon Lloyd. Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Gary McHenry.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Okay. So now we have a 3% bonus for the employees, not elected officials, and that's what stands on the budget now. Am I correct?
No, it's not a 3%.
It's a flat dollar.
Okay, flat amount, not, okay.
Judge, you still have the second half of Justice Eva Madison's divided question, which is the question of elected officials' compensation.
Okay. So, did you have,
Well, I moved that,
oh, okay.
that elected officials be paid, so it's divided, so that motion's still on the floor, I would think.
I suggest, because I still suggest you put it back out
All
there.
right, I'm gonna put it back on the floor then, that, we pay the elected officials, 85% of the maximum allowed.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I want to understand, is the county clerk's money covering that expense as well? So once again, we're contemplating using one-time money for an ongoing expense.
Cheryl, is that correct? Yes. Okay.
Then I cannot support it. Thank you.
Okay. J.P. Bowman?
Thank you, Judge. I guess my question, the state is bumping the compensation level on elected officials up 3%. Is that correct? Okay. So in effect then, if we go ahead and approve this, what we're doing is giving elected officials a 3% raise, and we're giving the salaried people a 3% bonus. And so the 3% raise for the elected officials is additive in future years with all the other benefits to go with it. And it is not for the salaried people. So I think that's a disparity on the top side here again, so I think that needs to be considered. Thank you.
Steve?
Just, I wanted to make sure it's not a flat, Justice Bowman, the concept of your statement's right, but it's not a flat 3%. There is a COLA, but it's not, wasn't just a flat 3%. There's some figure at which the legislature arrived, but I don't think it's a flat 3%. There is another, the idea that you're expressing is right. This just may not be the exact figure. I wanted to make sure that that was out there.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Do we have a choice? I mean, if this is state mandated, we have to be the ones to approve it, not approve it. If we do approve it,
There's a range.
but they're currently, are they not at 85%? You just leave them there.
Yeah.
So the motion is to increase it 3% above 85%.
No, keep it at 85.
Just keep it at 85% of the maximum allowed.
I'm sorry.
There's a minimum and a maximum for every elected official, depending on the class size of the county. So last year, for this year, we set them at 85% of the then existing max. That max has gone up this year. So if we affirmatively said 85% of the new max, it's a raise because of the raise that's gone into effect as a result of the state's COLA. If we leave them where they are, it's 85% of this year's max. So we're not, I hope that makes sense. But there's a range, so we do have a choice because we can set anywhere
Okay.
within the range.
Okay, thank you.
J.P. Maxwell.
Thank you, Judge. Attorney Zaga, can you clarify what that actual number was? If it's not exactly 3%, can you tell us what the true number was so that we know what we're discussing?
It is 3. Cheryl's telling me it is 3 on the dot, so I was wrong. Justice Bowman was exactly right. It's 3%. I apologize.
So effectively, if we maintain the 85%
It's a
maximum
3%
range, it's a
raise.
3% raise?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are we ready for a vote? Yes. Carly, call the roll.
Butch Pond? Yes. Bill Essery? Yes. Daniel Balls?
Yes.
Harvey Bowman?
No.
Rick Cochran?
No.
Robert Dennis?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke?
No.
Ann Harbison?
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd?
No.
Tom Lundstrom?
No.
Eva Madison?
No.
Sue Madison?
No.
Joe Maxwell?
No.
Gary McHenry?
No.
Joe Patterson?
I think that's funny.
Okay.
I would suggest that you still need to say something about elected officials' compensation.
Okay. Okay, now, you've voted down the 85% which is a small raise. So do you want to go back and do something now? Yes, J.P. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. I believe it's been 2 years since we've done anything with elected officials' set pay. Is that right? I believe the last 2 years we haven't done anything.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I think that's right. I would move that we offer a $1,000. I know if I say bonus, it automatically becomes part of their base pay, but call it a bonus and pay it at the same time we're doing the other employees, so we have one bonus run for the accountants.
I'm sorry. Was that a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, J.P. Lundstrom.
What I'm confused about here is, as far as I know, our elected officials are already set at 85%. That's what we're paying them right now. So you're either going to keep on paying them 85%, which is going to include the 3%. Right?
But we just voted it down.
Well, I know it, but that's what's so silly about this whole process. I voted no because we're already at 85%.
Of this year.
Well, I know it, but you try moving it to 80. You know, you can't do that.
No.
So they're going to be at 85 next year. What are they going to be at?
85% of this year's number, not next year's.
Judge, may I?
Yes,
I
please.
just don't know if you can do that. That's my question, Judge. Thank you.
What you can't do is cut their pay in absolute numbers. You can't. So, judge's pay is $91,000 and change for 2015. She has to make at least $91,000 and change for 2016.
So you could cut the 85 to 84 to where they're still making the 91,000 based on the new.
It has to be the
maximum.
same absolute number, just as
Right.
long as it doesn't violate the
So
bracket.
So we could move the percentage, but not the actual pay, right?
Or you could say, name a real number that's within the bracket, which would be easier than fiddling with percentages. Just a suggestion.
Well, I would like to make a motion that we set the elected officials' percentage of the maximum to where it equals what they're making now for next year, and give them the same $500 bonus we're giving the elected officials.
We got a motion on the floor.
I will accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, and who made the second?
I did.
Okay, will you accept that as a second?
Yeah, I'll go and accept it. We need to get this over with, but I'm gonna be out of order just as sure as. This is ridiculous.
Do you want me to recognize you?
I mean, I just don't see why we just don't pay the 85% of what's allowable. I know, but these are elected officials. They carry on and direct the activities of the county. They take care, I mean, their responsibilities are enormous, all of them. You know, from the treasurer to whatever.
And you're out of order.
Oh, I know I'm out of order, but
Okay, J.B. Madison.
I think it might be easier, rather than guessing about a percent,
Just a moment, guys.
why can't we just say that their salaries will remain flat? I mean, I just don't know why it needs to be a percentage, because we set it every year. And it just seems to me that we should just say that they're not getting an increase, instead of trying to back it out and figure out what the magic percentage is. I'm also not sure, I guess a bonus would be a form of salary, so it seems like it'd be permissible because the legislature sets what we can pay them. And I don't know, does it allow us to pay them bonus compensation? I don't think previously when we've done a bonus, we've given elected officials a bonus.
I can't recognize you right now. I'm sorry. I can recognize you at the end of the meetings and allow you to talk, but I can't recognize you right now.
Can I hold up a sign?
Sure.
Okay.
There wouldn't be, it's my opinion, there wouldn't be an issue with it as long as you weren't breaking the top of the bracket.
Between the minimum and max. I think you're right.
But for what it's worth, in terms of verbiage, it may be wiser to call it a $500 salary increase or stipend or whatever you want to call it, as opposed to a bonus. If you do it that way, though, you're going to have to pay it out right over 50 or 26 pay periods, as opposed to one lump sum.
Yeah, I know.
Then would it become permanent?
Do you know the code section? I'll look it up real fast, because I'm concerned that it actually says what their salary can be, and by definition, a bonus is not salary, and so I'm concerned about.
Okay, what I'd like to do is call recess right now.
Okay.
And give Eva a chance here to do a little bit of research.
Thank you.
Okay, so now, where are we? We're trying to decide.
Yeah, and
Yeah, go ahead. You've been researching while Steve's looking here. Go ahead, JP Madison.
So 1414-1204 talks about the quorum court setting the compensation of elected county officers and only mentions salaries. It says the quorum court of each county shall fix by ordinance the annual salaries of the following county officers with the minimums and maximums provided in this section. There's not allowance for other compensation. And I think that, and this is the section I couldn't find, which maybe Attorney Zega can find, we're not permitted to lower an elected official's salary once they're in office. And so by giving this bonus, it's a raise. So there's just no way else to do it. And I don't think we can call it a bonus because I think we can only set salaries, even though it's sort of the same thing. But so I don't think we can do a bonus, a one-time bonus for elected officials.
Ms. Steiger?
I agree with Justice Madison for a slightly different reason. There's language in this statute that gives me pause, and the language is the annual salary of, and it lists each elected official, shall be in compensation for all services performed as provided by the Arkansas Constitution by law or by county ordinance. In other words, the salary is the compensation, and by that language, I don't think you're authorized to give a bonus. Expenses and other whole different authorization, but you get a salary for doing your job by statute.
JP Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. I did a little calculation here based on the 100% of the maximum. I just did this on the judge's compensation. But based on that, looking at the current salary, for next year, it would be 81.72%. So it'd just be just under 82% of the maximum. So if we went ahead and looked at an 82% compensation for all the county officials, that would not be a cut in anybody's compensation. Plus, it would probably be somewhere in that $500 range as far as additional increase in income. So I didn't do the 82% to see what it would come out to exactly, but that would be a way to arrive at a reasonable figure that would not reduce pay, but keep it very flat. Thank you.
JP Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. In light of Attorney Zega's research, I would withdraw my motion because it doesn't work according to state law, state statute, and would offer a new motion, which would be basically to add to the existing pay structure for the elected officials $1,000 per year.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion and a second.
I didn't hear that motion.
Okay. Please repeat that again if you.
Okay, sorry, I'm a little hoarse. Withdrawing the earlier motion because it does not follow with state law, state statute, and to raise the existing salaries of our 8 elected officials by $1,000.
And we got a second. Well, I already have a second. Okay. Any discussion? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. I just would like to make a comment here. I'm somewhat troubled that we're treating all elected officials the same. And I feel like the sheriff is the sheriff 24 hours a day and is actually on duty 24 hours a day. I doubt seriously that the treasurer is going to get a call in the middle of the night that one of his employees has been shot or that there needs to be a manhunt. And I'm bothered by that because there is a difference in the duties of these various obligations. True, the coroner does get a lot of calls in the middle of the night, and I think he recently came to be full-time after previously having been part-time. But I would just ask you to give a little thought to the difference in the duties of the jobs. I mean, law enforcement for this county, in the unincorporated part, managing the jail, is a huge responsibility for our sheriff. And Well, let me try that then. I will amend the motion to move the sheriff to 90% of the maximum, or a number agreeable to my colleagues, because it is a tremendous job.
I'd second that.
Well, it was an amendment.
That's fine.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Second deferment.
Thank you.
Where do we stand on this, Steve?
Well, no, Justice Lundstrom seconded it.
Yes, go ahead, J.P. Aki.
If we're not careful, what happened last time we met is going to happen again. And if you want to look at the sheriff and the judge and consider those two, then consider the clerk and the circuit clerk and the treasurer, and then divide them up as far as duties and areas, or not areas of responsibility, but level of responsibility. I guess we could do that. But if you're going to consider the sheriff, I believe that you need to consider the judge as well. I just don't want to get into what happened last time we convened. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, yes, J.P. Harbison.
Add the county judge to the 90%.
Do we have a motion? We have a motion. Where are we stand, Steve?
Well,
An amendment?
here's the problem with Justice Harbison's amendment. Y'all voted that down about 45 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So, Parliament, with due respect to Justice Harbison, her amendment's out of order because you'd have to bring it back. You'd have to move to reconsider it. Justice Sue Madison's motion is different because she's talking about just the sheriff. So it's a different motion. So with due respect to Justice Harbison, I believe her motion to be out of order. It's not proper. It's not proper in terms of parliamentary procedure.
So are we to the, any discussion on this?
Now you're voting on it, Judge, you're voting on an amended motion. This was not a friendly. So if they vote for the amendment, you still have to come back, and I want to make sure everybody understands that, and vote on the main motion. So this would require essentially 2 votes to pass.
Okay, Butch.
I'm going to be one of the people that votes no on this, and because the judge was not included. Thank you.
Okay, Carly, we're voting on the amendment now. Call the roll, please.
Would you restate the amendment?
The amendment, as I understand it, is to pay the sheriff at 90% of his statutory maximum, and was seconded. That was Justice Sue Madison's motion, seconded by Justice Lundstrom.
Okay, Carly.
Butch Pond? No. Bill Ussery? No. Daniel Balls?
No.
Harvey Bowman? No. Rick Cochran?
No.
Robert Dennis?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke?
No.
Ann Harbison?
No.
Sharon Lloyd?
No.
Tom Lindstrom?
Yes.
Eva Madison?
Yes.
Sue Madison?
Yes.
Joe Maxwell?
No.
Gary McHenry? Joe Patterson?
Okay, amendment failed, so now we're back to,
Back on the main motion, which is, I would ask Justice Cochran to please restate his main motion.
Yes, thank you, Judge and Steve Zaga. To offer a raise in the amount of $1,000 to each of the 8 elected county officers. We're basically getting away from the percent of state statutory. Just
okay, have a
taking-
motion and a second, so you're recognized.
Thank you, Judge. I'd like to ask our attorney, when we have a new county judge come January of 17, are we locked into that amount for that new county judge?
Unless you change it next year.
I have to read what the code section says.
Or will a new budget,
No, because you're saying that's the new base salary.
is it the new base salary?
You'll have to do it before he's elected or she's elected.
What's the, Justice Madison has it, or Justice Eva Madison has it at the tip of her fingers, apparently.
It's 14-14-1203, subsection D. Any decrease in the annual salary or compensation of a county officer shall not become effective until January 1 following a general election held after such decrease shall have been fixed by the quorum court of the county. I presume that's just so that if you don't like who gets elected, you can't just go out and change their salary after election day. It's fixed before election day.
Okay.
And then that's what it is. So I think that it could be changed.
Okay, thank you.
Before the election.
Carla, would you call the roll, please? Oh, I'm sorry. Wait just a minute. I'm sorry. J.P. Maxon.
I'm reading the statutory language. Okay. Yes and no, I concur with it. And here's why. Presumably, y'all could come back before the general election and decide not to. You could have a budget session in July and decide to decrease those salaries, presumably, and it would be legal under that code section.
Clarification, we need to do that before the primary or before the general?
Before the general.
Okay.
J.P. Lloyd.
Okay, are we voting on $1,000 salary raise and plus the additional 3% that the state?
No, three. No, three.
No 3, okay, okay.
Are we ready for the roll? Yes, J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. Guys, I think we're making this really complicated. If we issue $1,000 across the board here for all the elected officials, there's a disparity in the amount of income, so $1,000 for one is more than the others. Why don't we look at 82% compensation level? On the judge's level, this would be a $327 raise, and the others would be comparable right down the ladder. So that's a simple way to accomplish the same thing and give us a number here that's easy to deal with. And I just think that makes a lot more sense than trying to keep playing with numbers and jiggle it around to try to keep everybody on the same level. So it would be a small increase, but it would be proportional to all the compensation levels for the elected officials. Thank you.
J.P. Osry.
I agree with what you're saying on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's not right to all the employees to have them all get the same thing and then to give these guys something different. And so I would rather stick with the original motion. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? So we're voting on the $1,000 increase, is that correct? Carly, call the roll, please.
Butch Pond?
Yes.
Bill Ussery?
Yes.
Daniel Balls?
Yes.
Harvey Bowman?
Yes.
Rick Cochran?
Yes.
Robert Dennis? Issa Eki? Ann Harbison? Sharon Lloyd?
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom?
Yes.
Eva Madison?
No.
Sue Madison?
Yes.
Joe Maxwell?
Yes.
Gary McHenry?
Yes.
Joe Patterson?
Yes.
Okay, now that we've got that passed, then we can go on and move on to Section 7, is that correct?
Well,
Or is that,
hold on a second, Judge.
okay,
6, Judge.
okay. So we can move on to number 6, finalization of the 2016 budget controls. Let me see. Help me here, Steve. What do we?
Well, we just took care of that, Judge.
6. That's what I was going to say. So we're moving on to 7.
Well, we still need, but we still need to put it in the language.
Oh, okay. What you have done here then is you finalized the budget controls on the salaries, but you're going to need to put it in language to put it in your budget. So,
Judge, if I may.
yes, please.
Ms. Beeks sent me suggested language here. Employees were employed for 1 year on January 1st, 2016. Full-time employees will receive a $500 salary bonus, and part-time APERS eligible employees will receive a $250 salary bonus. The bonus will be paid in 2 equal installments in July and December of 2016. Salaries of full-time elected officials will be increased by $1,000 over their 2015 budgeted salary amount.
So is this what we're implementing here now, the number 6?
Karen's giving me the thumbs up.
Is that right? So is that what we're doing? We're now voting on that for number 6. Is that
I
correct?
move that we accept this as this language for number 6.
I have a motion and a second, so.
Not from my phone.
What'd you say?
I'm sorry, Karen, what?
Not hooked up to the screen, so I
Oh,
can't get
okay.
it up there. I mean,
You want to take a break and let everybody look at what Karen has implemented here? Are you okay to vote on this, or do you want to take a break?
Let's vote.
Okay, let's vote. Carly, call the roll. Okay, hang on. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I just want to understand from our attorney that this is consistent with what we've just done as far as the employee bonus.
Yes.
I mean, essentially, you've adopted the language from our motion.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Well, yes, I mean, Ms. Beeks reduced it to writing, but yes, that's what you just did.
Thank you.
J.P. Maxwell.
Point of clarification, I was thinking that if you had been here for 6 months from the first part of the year, you were eligible for the first half bonus, and then if you were here for the second 6 months, these were 2 separate bonuses, not contingent upon a full year of employment.
You had to be here for a year.
You have to be here for a year to be eligible.
but I thought you said.
Call a question.
Well, that calls for, yeah. That too.
I would
J.P.
still like.
Maxwell, go ahead.
I thought what we voted on originally was that if an employee was here from January 1 to June the 30th, they were eligible for the first half bonus. If they're part-time or full-time, divide it by 2. If they were here for the second portion of the year, July 1st through December 31st, they were then eligible for the second part of the bonus. So we split it into 2 payouts, and we also split it into 2 eligibility timeframes so that we could include more people. So if you started in the middle of the year or you quit in the middle of the year, you were not discounting yourself from this bonus plan.
Karen, is this the way you understood this?
That was not as included in the motion that was made by, we were looking here, and that was a motion made by Rick, and that wasn't a part of his motion that was voted on. I mean, it was the 2 installments, but that was not part of the motion.
Because I thought Justice Harbison's friendly amendment was to make it 1 year and 1 payout.
That was mine.
Right.
But
And we
then it
declined
was
that.
Split. Then I thought we split it. We do have it split, don't we, Karen? I'm out of order, sorry.
Cheryl?
Typically, when a raise is given, which this is kind of in place of, it's given to employees. They don't get it like, if you start in February, you wouldn't get it January with your first paycheck. You wouldn't get it till February. So you actually have to be here a year to receive it, like if you vote on a raise for next year. And so I think that's why that language was put in that way, is if you were here a year in that first 6 months, then you would receive it in July. And the ones that would be, their anniversary date would fall in the last half of the year would receive it in December.
I'm not exactly sure how that all ended up, but I know that I think there were probably several people that thought they were voting on 2 eligibility periods and 2 different bonuses.
Steve?
Well, Judge, I think it's important for the intent of the court to be
Followed.
expressed, yes. And there's a way to do that.
Okay, let's do it. Tell me how.
Well, just a second. Essentially, it's a motion to reconsider. And it's a motion to adopt a previously adopted motion.
So we'd have to have someone to make a motion to do this. Maxwell, you want to do this?
I'll make a motion that we pay this out in 2 equal sums with 2 eligibility periods of the first 6 months of the year and the second 6 months of the year.
Can we have that now? Are we in good for discussion?
Yes, Judge. I mean, I'm taking that as a motion to amend what was previously decided. Is that fair, Justice Maxwell?
Okay, is there? Hey, Cheryl, hang on just a minute, guys. Cheryl. Karen?
What makes an employee eligible, like in the first 6 months, compared to the employee that's eligible for the last 6 months? I mean, they have to be a full-time employee for a year between?
That's what I'd mentioned earlier before we voted on this the first time, was that if you were here for the first 6 months, you're eligible for the first payout.
So even if you start January 1, you get a bonus on July 1st, is what you're saying?
Right. Half of the bonus the half of the 500.
Okay. So
If you're here for the second half of the year, you get the second half.
Okay, so you're saying you don't have to be an employee that's been here a year that's eligible for annual leave to get the bonus. You just have to be an employee, period.
I would leave that to the pleasure of the court if they.
But that's what
Have an
your
opinion on
motion, that's what your motion intends?
I don't know that I considered someone who hadn't been here a year when we were just discussing this under normal pay raise criteria. So maybe it needs to be someone who's been on the employment roster for a year up to that point.
Just a minute. Steve, are you looking here?
No, this gets to, Judge, this gets to the substance of the motion. And the original wording of the budget control took into account the fact that you had to be here a year to get the bonus.
Right, but to qualify for half of the bonus, you could be here, if you'd been here on the books for a year, and then you worked that 6 months, then you would get your bonus for that 6 months.
Yes, sir. I guess what I'm saying is that seems to me to be, the threshold question is, how long do you have to be a full-time paid employee or a part-time APRS eligible employee of Washington County, Arkansas to be eligible to get a bonus check, period?
Yes.
And the way the budget control language was worded originally and the way the motion was worded originally, the threshold question was, you got to be here a year. And the way your motion, the way I understand your motion to be, and the way you answered Ms. Beek's question a moment ago, seems to me like if you work here from January to June 30th, you're getting half the bonus. And if you quit on July 1st, you're getting that bonus check regardless.
I'll leave that to the pleasure of the court as how they.
Okay, now I've got, okay, J.P. Ecke.
That was my question. On the handbook, does it say anything about, or budget with the comptroller, what are the guidelines for employment for the year? I mean, you're not eligible unless you're here for 1 year. Is there anything,
It's actually outlined simply in the budget control.
okay.
So there's not a handbook statute that governs this or a policy. That budget control is what directs us how to apply the raise or bonus.
Currently, the policy is you have to be employed 1 year
That's right.
to be eligible for a pay raise, correct?
That is how the budget control has been written for the past several years, yes.
Okay.
But it is decided by the court annually in budget controls. There's not per se a policy other than this budget control.
Okay, thank you. I would like to keep it at a year to incentivize them to stay and not just 6 months and get paid and leave. That's the way I feel about it.
Well, that's the way we voted, wasn't it?
Is that-
That was the
is that
original
what-
vote. That's the way it was voted, so.
Paying out twice, but you have to be eligible by being employed for a year, correct? So what are we missing?
No on this one.
No, but what is it that we're missing?
Are we okay?
What is it?
Withdraw my motion and we'll
Go ahead and go on.
snatch conciseness out of the jaws of y'all's convolution.
I really thank you. Okay, then I think
Thank
we're
you.
going to leave it as is, if this is in agreement with everyone. Okay, now let's go back, thank you, J.P. Maxwell. Let's go back to number 6. And do we have a motion on the floor to approve this? Rick, is that
So
yours? Okay.
Okay, and it was
Okay, I
second.
have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Praise God, don't. Okay, Carly, call the roll.
The amendment,
Just the number 6?
Just the number 6, yes. Are you ready? Carly?
Butch Pond,
Yes.
Bill Ussery,
Yes.
Daniel Balls,
Yes.
Harvey Bowman,
Yes.
Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis, Lisa Ecke, Ann Harbison, Sharon Lloyd,
Yes.
Tom Lindstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison, Sue Madison, Joel Maxwell, Gary McHenry, Joe Patterson,
that's done.
Okay, now we're ready to move on to number 7. J.P. Cochran?
Thank you, Judge. 7.1 is our ordinance that approves the budgets, I guess it's, okay, it's all budgets. Does this also include our budget controls by ordinance? It does, okay. So, Attorney Zega, would you please read 7.1?
An ordinance recognizing revenues and appropriating monies for the expenditures in each fund for Washington County, Arkansas for the year 2016, and adopting a budget for the various departments reflecting the line item expenditures thereof. Be it ordained by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas. The Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas has prepared a county budget for the year 2016 for all funds. Said budget reflecting the anticipated revenues of Washington County and the line item expenditures authorized for each department within each fund of said county, the number and compensation of deputies and county employees, and the compensation of county officers. Article 2, a copy of said 2016 budget for each fund with approved amendments shall be on file in the county clerk's office. Article 3, the said 2016 budget is hereby incorporated herein and adopted in full, and all expenditures reflected therein are authorized to be expended. Article 4, the 2016 budget controls are hereby adopted and incorporated herein as if set out word for word. Article 5, the collector's unappropriated fund is a fund separate and apart from the above funds as administered by the county. Article 6, if any part of this ordinance is held invalid, such invalidity will not affect any other portion of this ordinance. Article 7, all laws and parts of law in conflicts with this ordinance are hereby repealed.
Thank you, Attorney Zagat. I will move to pass 7.1.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay.
I don't know whether this discussion's gonna be worthwhile or not, but there's more than ample amount of spending in this budget to cause me to vote no for it. But some of the stuff I voted no for originally, I got beat 14-1, so I'm probably not going to change it very much. So reluctantly, I guess I will vote for this budget so we don't have to sit here through January trying to do it. But I'm not happy with all of this budget. I'm not happy with the $420,000 that's going to the election commission. I'm not happy with the $500,000 extra dollars that's going to the road fund. I'm not happy with the $123,000 going to the bus, North Arkansas Regional Transit, that runs empty all the time. So I could keep on enumerating things, but there's several things in this budget that I am opposed to. But I think I'm reluctantly going to go ahead and vote yes on it to get it passed, and we can move on with the business of the county. Thank you, Madam Chair.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. After much consideration, I think the problem that I have with the budget is that I think it's based on a very critical false assumption. This discovery that we have all made about the sales tax with respect to the percentage breakdown, I don't think there's any basis, there's no authority for us to be dividing up the sales tax like we are. So the revenue apportionment that we are seeing with certain money going to the road department and certain money going to the general fund, I don't know where the authority is, because what I've been given, what we've all been given, is a brochure from a sales tax election that occurred in the early 1980s. It's just a brochure.
That's a point of order, because I don't think this has anything to do right now with this budget. This is something that's separate.
This is absolutely my reasoning for why I'm going to vote against this budget, and I want everybody to hear it. I think it's absolutely within order.
Hang on just a minute.
Before she proceeds, Judge, this is broadly stated a discussion about revenue. I think Justice Madison's discussion is germane. I think the point of order is not well taken in this case.
Okay, I will rule. Okay, go ahead, J.P.
Okay.
Madison.
Thank you, Judge. But we have this brochure from a committee that supported a political ballot initiative. That's Exhibit A. Exhibit B is a resolution that the Quorum Court passed in 1981 prior to that election, saying how they would expect to spend the proceeds of the sales tax if it passed, but it was not a guarantee. It specifically said it was an approximation. Based on that, the revenue numbers we are receiving for the road department include 40% of our general purpose sales tax going to the road department. And I can't figure out the legal authority for us to do that. Because if the legal authority is the resolution from 1981 that was non-binding and unofficial, then no other portion of the sales tax is being divided the way that the Quorum Court in 1981 said it was going to be divided. And so I think that the apportionment of the revenue, like we're doing it, is without a legal basis. This court, no court before this court, has said that that is the way our general purpose sales tax should be dedicated. We just simply haven't said it. And our entire budget is based off of that interpretation and that apportionment of revenue. And I think it's incorrect, because if you look at the road department, they're going to have, I think, $1 million in reserves. If that $1 million in reserves was in the general fund reserves, we would have $6.3 million projected for our reserves, and I think we could have looked at giving our employees an actual raise and not a bonus. But we have been so concerned with protecting this road department revenue that I think is not without legal basis to be there. And I urge the members to consider whether you want to pass a budget based off something that apparently has no authority from any court before this court. It's something that we really need to look at, and I cannot support the budget for that reason, because I think we are endorsing a split of revenue that this court has not authorized. It is some kind of assumption or tradition that has never been formally put into ordinance, and I think it's improper. And for that reason, I will have to vote against this budget. Thank you.
I'm not sure what year it started, but I know when I first started here in '99 that it was not 60-40, but a few years after that, the court did change it to be 60-40, and it's been that way for years. And I know that when Roger Haney used to do the breakdown of the revenue, he presented it every month, showing what 60% was that went into county general and how much 40% was that went into road. And that was one of the line items he always pointed out. So I know that the courts before this one was the ones that originally changed that.
And my concern, Madam Judge, is the lack of an ordinance saying that. I think what is presented to us and what is assumed and what I don't think that is the wish of this legislative body. We legislate through ordinances. When I asked for an ordinance confirming the 40%, I was given the resolution from 1981. There is no ordinance that gives the road department 40% of the general purpose 1 cent sales tax. That's the way we legislate. There's no other way to do it.
Cheryl, has the auditors ever said anything about this?
No, because it's actually, it's part of the ordinance for the budget. Whenever the budget's looked at and all the revenue, and the courts obviously see that, then when they approve that ordinance for the budget, that's approving that information.
She's called for the question. I'm sorry.
She doesn't have the floor, Judge. Yeah, I mean, she can do it when she's got the floor.
Okay, J.P. Pond.
I believe that the brochure that was mentioned, that came off of a resolution passed by the Quorum Court. Their intention of what they would do if the 1 cent sales tax passed. So it was the Quorum Court's intention, and the voters voted for that 1 cent sales tax with the idea that that's where the money was going to go. And had we decided, if this Quorum Court had decided to take that away, that 40% for the roads, which the roads badly need, it would be the first time that I would be voting no to pass a budget. Those roads were in bad need of that money at that time, and they still are. The county in acreage seems to get smaller as we go along, but the number of houses, the number of people in that smaller area still grows. The more traffic you get on those roads, the more need we have for those repairs. And I don't see anything wrong with $1 million in reserve for a road department. If there is some kind of disaster, flood, ice storm, whatever it may be, and FEMA steps in to help us, we've got to have matching money. Thank you.
Okay. J.P. Harbison?
I'm going to call the question.
That requires a vote, Judge, and it's.
Do I call a second?
It does.
Do I have a second to call for the question? Okay. Dies from lack of second, so. J.P. Cochran?
Thank you, Judge. I'm struggling with passing this budget. There are a few items that are not as conservatively balanced as a lot of the budget is. Tom's already mentioned a few of them. I would ask that we invite our folks from the Election Commission to come back tomorrow night, since we have a meeting scheduled, and see if we can reconsider their basic need for voting equipment as opposed to the whole enchilada that we previously approved. We've all agreed that each one of these steps along our budget process, that each was a tentative approval. I don't want to be here tomorrow night just as much as anybody else doesn't want to be here, but I think that there is some money to be reduced in that budget as well as possibly others, but that's the one that for me is key because we haven't given everybody else everything they wanted, but that department has more than enough for their basic need to reestablish the voting equipment and continue to have the same voting sites we had and allow them our forecast that we will fund them over the next couple, 3 years to put them at the point that they can go to these voting pods when money is not quite so tight. That will help our reserves. You know, there are some things we haven't spoken about that are sort of Damocles holding over us that we don't know what our expense potentially will be. And I won't vote for the budget tonight without going back to the Election Commission and asking them to voluntarily reduce their budget to a level that they can work with and give them our commitment to help them over the next few years to get to where they've wanted to go this year. Money is tight. Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. Members, we've sat for weeks going through budget numbers department by department. And from my perspective, I don't think we made any hard decisions. I think we pretty much caved in every time we were asked. And I'm bothered by that. We've worried about our reserves, and I'm worried about what our lawsuits could do to us. That's sort of the big unknown in my mind that would cause me to lie awake at night quite a bit. As far as the original 81 vote on the county sales tax, there were other entities that were pledged or promised or considered for a certain amount of money. One of the big selling points of that election was emergency medical services, and they were promised or indicated they would likely receive a certain percentage, and I don't think we've ever kept up with that. And I would remind you that we had a significant portion of 2 bridges torn down in this county and rebuilt with no need to come to the Quorum Court for any additional money. That tells me a lot about what kind of money's in the road department budget. And if they have that much, why aren't the roads in better condition? All I hear is complaints about county roads from JPs. I'm not hearing it from constituents. We hear it from, okay. Well then, if they have that kind of money, why haven't they spent it? So I'm concerned that we haven't really buckled down and made this a streamlined budget like we should have. Thank you.
J.P. Lundstrom.
Well, I agree with J.P. Cochran. I spoke with Renee Oslauger, who's the president of the Election Commission, at the Lincoln Day event the other night, and she personally told me that, I reminded her that I was the only one that voted no on her request. And she told me that she thought it was way too much money. And I said, well, if that was your point of view, why did you ask for it? Well, I think the Election Commission and the lady that runs the Election Commission over there may be 2 different entities. One may be influencing the other, which happens oftentimes. But I would also like to see them come back. It wouldn't be a huge difference, but several $100,000 and several $100,000. I know I've got opposition to this in here because I've never been able to win it, but we've got $123,000 in the road fund for the bus line. I would like to reduce that back to the $23,000 that we used to give them, and put that 100,000 back into the road department. That's in a line item in the half-cent sales tax. So you won't see it as the bus. I don't remember what it says there, but it's in the half-cent deal. It's $123,000 a year. So that's another one that I am concerned about. But, you know, we either need to go back and revisit some of these, and if we do, it's going to take time and effort. You know, and I don't know how much we're going to change it. So, but I do agree with J.P. Cochran. I'd like to see us meet at least tomorrow night and see what they say about that. Thank you.
J.P. Patterson.
Thank you, Judge. Well, I was of the mind that we probably ought to pass it and move on, but I've changed my mind. Been coming down here for 13 years. A few more meetings won't really make even a difference much one way or the other. We have these issues that come up, and they keep coming up about every budget session they have for years, some of them. We just need to deal with them. It's just time. It may take a couple of meetings, but if it does, it does. And I think we probably should have revisited the ones. I think we just ought to make a list of the ones we want to revisit and just revisit them, take them right down the list, and do what we were elected to do and pass the best budget we could pass. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm okay.
Justice Harbison's not here.
J.P. Harbison.
I think we need to go on and pass this budget. There may be some concerns about the election commission, but they came in here and asked for what I thought they needed, and they have never come in here and asked for something they did not need. Elections are very important. The other thing is, you know, we cut $4 million last year out of this budget, and we had no capital outlay or anything, and we've restored some of that. We've still got a very, very lean budget. Now, I know there's some pet projects that some of you don't like the bus thing, but that's essential for low-income people. We're not going, none of us are ever going to agree 100% on this budget. I think we've got a good budget. We've got approximately $5.3 million carryover with $3 million holdback. We've got almost over $9 million that can be used if we have some kind of catastrophe. And the other thing is, you know, we've got a half-cent coming into the road department that started, it's been in 3 years, it's going to come in another 7 years, and then it's gone. You know, I think we need that money in our road department. There are more and more people live out in the county. There are more and more people on the roads in the county. These roads are arteries into the main highways of Fayetteville and Springdale. We need to maintain them. We need to pave every one of them. This is an economic development type thing. We've got 47 bridges that are impaired in some way that need to be repaired, and this is no time to take any money out of the road department. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. I want to agree with J.P. Madison on one point that I think we have said yes to everything or a lot of things on here, and I think that's usually the easy way out. And I do think now that we're kind of down to sifting this out and trying to come to some holistic number, I do think we need to consider looking for some other places to maybe say no or maybe and get to a little more realistic balance now that we see all the numbers on the table. And I also agree with J.P. Cochran on the Election Commission. I actually went and spoke to those ladies before we had that meeting, and they told me directly that they would be fine with 1/3 of that $420,000. $420,000 would just fund the entire project. That's what they hope to have eventually, but getting the additional, I think, 140 would have been very sufficient for them. So I do think that their understanding and what their request was, that's what they needed to pay for everything, but to make considerable improvements this year and get farther down the road than where they were more than happy with 140. So I think that I'm going to be in favor of not passing this budget tonight so that we can do a little more fine tuning and truly bring the citizens of Washington County a a responsible budget, not just one that's easy to get to. Thank you, Judge.
Judge, I'd like to make a motion that we table this budget decision till tomorrow night.
I've got a motion to table. I've got a second. Does that take precedence?
It does, but may I address,
Can I recognize one person?
you, Judge, it's your meeting. No, that's true. Judge, if I may,
Go ahead.
if you move to table it till tomorrow night, you're moving to bring it off the table certainly tomorrow night. Based on what I'm hearing, you may or may not be ready to do that tomorrow night. Just suggesting that maybe simply a motion to table with the idea that it takes affirmative action to bring it off the table, which you can always do, is the better way to go.
Okay.
Based on what I'm hearing you all say.
I'll just make a simple motion to table.
Second.
That's not debatable.
All in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. No. Okay, ayes win. Do I have any citizens' comments? You've been wanting to talk, come on.
I'd like to make a comment. I'd like to make a comment before we leave.
I'm gonna, JP Esser, you want to comment?
It's just, and I realize this was tabled, and I know I'm totally out of order, but I would really like for us to have the IT department come back in here, because they're one of the few departments that's an investment, and yet we did not allow them, we cut everything from them. And they came and they said, if we spend $60,000, we're going to replace at least $90,000, and we voted no. So I think we need to hear from them if we hear from the other people also. Thank you.
Okay. JP Lundstrom?
I just wanted to make a comment to share something with you folks, since we don't have other business on the agenda tonight. But the FBI runs what's known as the Citizens Academy, where they try to indoctrinate citizens on what the FBI does in terms of terrorism and different functions that they perform. I went to the meeting the other night when my granddaughter graduated from that academy. My son's graduated from it, my daughter-in-law's graduated from it, and my son now serves on the board of it. But what I was impressed with, and I wanted to share it with you guys because it was meaningful to me, the chief of police of Rogers brought the speech, and that he several times commended Sheriff Helder. And he finally said the pinnacle of intellect in the law enforcement community in Northwest Arkansas resides in Sheriff Tim Helder. He said, if I have a question, I call Sheriff Helder for the answer. And he said the other chiefs of police in the area do too. With regard, respectfully, to Mr. Cochran's comments about experience, there's a difference in experiences. Just years of experience is one thing, and true knowledge of a job is another. For example, the last time somebody ran against Sheriff Helder, it was a Republican. And being a Republican, I voted for Sheriff Helder instead of the other guy. And they both had years and years of experience, but one of them was not in any way qualified to do the job. But I just wanted y'all to know how, in what high esteem, these other law enforcement people in the law enforcement community in Northwest Arkansas hold our sheriff. I think it's very important that we understand that. And this is one of the reasons I was working towards increasing his pay the way I was, not just for that one reason, but recognizing the job he does and the job he has to do. So thank you very much, Judge.
Did I have any citizens' comments? Let's try again. Yes, Karen.
I just want to be sure we have everybody here tomorrow night that you want. I hear IT and I hear Election Commission. Do we want somebody from Ozark Transit here? Okay, I'll let them know it's going to be discussed. Okay, is there anybody else?
Is there any other budgets that you guys are talking about? Give them a fair shot if you're going to go out.
Yeah, I have a comment. Yes, I do. I have a comment. Okay, let me ask you a question. You're going to bring your IT guy in, you're going to ask him to present what? What's he going to present? What's he going to present? He's going to lay out a lot of money that you've already asked him to present. He's going to present pretty much the same thing. Why don't you ask him about his call, his help desk? What is his severity rates? How many calls does he get per hour by employee? What about the roads? You've got roads out there that you talk about roads. You've got all these roads that need to be repaired. Have the guy come back and say, what's your plan? What's it going to cost, and when are you going to start, and when are you going to finish? You know, you could do that. And then you can say, okay, what's the target? What is your group target? Do you want to increase the budget or decrease it or keep it flat? I'm asking. Do you want to do that? No, I'm asking a question. It's my comment. If you come in and you want these people to come in and give you percents, then you say, okay, do you want to keep it neutral, revenue neutral? You want to keep it the same amount? Or do you want to increase it by so much? Or you go back to each individual and say, cut your budget 2% and show me where your cut's coming from. You're sitting here doing this in the dark. Do you have all the information? You don't know. You're not intimate with that budget that the IT guy has or the road manager has. How many, I'll go back to the roads. I heard in some of the conversations I've heard today or in the past, we sat here and we talked about cars and trucks. I heard questions, how many miles do you have on the trucks? How many miles do you put on the cars? Did anyone give you an answer? I rest my case. I rest my case. You're sitting here trying to do this in the dark. Why don't you come up with a form and says, okay, tell me what you're going to do and map it out. What time frames, how much you're going to spend. Then you're going to start doing this a little bit. Lindsay talked about a merit pay-based thing. Then you have goals and objectives to go back in 6 months and say to the road people, where are you in your plan? Or you go to the IT. You said you're going to spend this. Where's that? I could go on and on. But it's some of these basic things. You're sitting here, you're debating things when you don't have the information. You put the county attorney, and he's sitting there trying to figure this out on the fly. You're not doing it. There's not enough analysis being done. Well, I'm talking for Matt, too, so there it's 6 months. Jeez. Hey, can I make a motion that I have 6 minutes instead of 3 next time?
Yes, Your Honor. I want to speak to our guests' comments. As the former chair of finance, the night that we disbanded the finance committee, I met prior to that meeting with all of the county officials, elected officials, management, top people. I asked them, I outlined the plan of what I was going to ask them. They refused to do it.
They're employees.
No.
Jeez.
They basically didn't want to do it. One of the hush. One of them made the comment that this information that I was asking would give them information for the court to beat them up. That's almost a verbatim comment. I really hated to hear that from that individual. But nevertheless, we have done budgets kind of in the blind for quite a while, and I was trying to change that. But the situation in the court was not which that was going to happen. That's unfortunate. Hopefully, we've learned that we can do this and basically demand that information. Thank you, Your Honor.